But yes, I'm Dan Lang. I'm from the New York State Department of Health in the Center for Environmental Health. So you might say, well, how did we get involved in COVID response and SARS-CoV-2 testing in wastewater? Well, we got into a lot of things in the health department that was unrelated to our jobs. So like Dan, it was March of 2020 when I was actually at a drive-through testing center as site lead, DOH site lead in Queens, swabbing hundreds of people a day in testing, when I got the call from a colleague that said, we found it in wastewater and you guys should really start getting on board and figuring out how to do this. So of course, Chris's lab and many other labs across the state started testing, started sampling, started working on methods. And so in fall of 2020, we actually did a pilot test in the cities of Buffalo, Syracuse, Albany, and Newburgh to kind of work on method development, but also try to get an understanding of how frequently we should be sampling, where should we be sampling, should we just be sampling at the treatment plants, or should we be going upstream into neighborhoods, schools, prisons, all of those things. So once we finished that pilot test, it was clear that we needed to jump on this and get a statewide wastewater surveillance network going. And then the vaccine came out. And that means all of our attention and a lot of local health department attention, rightfully so, was put on making sure we rolled out the vaccine. But we kept with it and started to build up this capability of wastewater surveillance in New York State. And so we have a lot of partners in this. Syracuse University and SUNY ESF jumped on it pretty quickly, developed some methods, and started testing in Syracuse, New York, Onondaga County. And so we were able to do our pilot test with them. And then after that kind of ended, certain communities just started becoming interested in doing it. Steuben County had a private business in that county that wanted to participate in the COVID response, and so they funded that. So we continued that, and then we applied for funding in the National Wastewater Surveillance System under CDC. So we joined that program, and with less than $1 million, we now have almost 100 treatment plants across the state that are testing at least weekly. So that's in almost every county of the state. And so quickly we are able to now, we're monitoring as many as almost 5 million people in New York State, across the whole state. And thanks to Chris and Arjun's lab here, we're also covering a lot of Suffolk County and Nassau County too. So, and so we're not stopping there. We have applied for additional funding to expand to as many as 225 wastewater treatment plants across the state. We're staffing up. We've got a dozen epidemiologists and public health corps hires that are going to build a sampling network across the state. We've already delineated and discretized into GIS all of the sewer sheds of New York State, so of the major treatment plants across the state. We built up a website here that has some information about our pilot test that I mentioned, how the sampling and analysis, the methodology, and whatnot. But what I really wanted to show in the last few minutes that we have here is the dashboard. So this is our live dashboard. We update it every day with data that comes in from all of our labs. SUNY Stony Brook is one of them. We have a lab in Central New York, Quadrant Biosciences, University of Buffalo is participating, and our Genesee Orleans local health department has its own lab that's doing samples in those 2 counties. And so this is all publicly available information, updated, like I said, every day. And is that, oh, it says click anywhere to interact. Okay, right. So you've seen this picture before. So this is the locations of every treatment plant that is participating in the statewide network. Actually, New York City and Westchester County do have wastewater treatment or wastewater surveillance projects of their own. New York City lab actually runs those. And we do get to see their data, but we don't post it on the website quite yet. We're getting there. But if you zoom in on, say, Suffolk County, and if it allows me to do so, this website, as you get closer in, you'll see the delineated wastewater or sewer, what we call sewer sheds. So the areas, I'm not sure why it's not staying zoomed in, but you get the point. So so we're able to get the data from all of these treatment plants and tests, and then look at trends. So we know that we still have substantial to high levels of SARS-CoV-2 RNA in our wastewater treatment plants throughout the state. But one thing we really look at is the trends. So this website allows you to have a drop down where we look at 2-week trends. And so, yes, there's a lot of SARS-CoV-2 in the wastewater stream still, but then you can go into your individual towns and counties and look to see, are you going down? Are you trending up? Are you stable? Well, one of the other things I really wanted to point out is that we're trying to build this for the future, and that if you think about, if we had a robust wastewater treatment or wastewater surveillance system in 2019, and we were testing for emerging threats, and we happened upon a novel coronavirus, imagine the response. What could have been the response had we had this network in place, right? It may not have been a mass shutdown of everything. It could have, there may have been a different way of getting ahead of the response. And so that's what we're building now. There have been 3 animal to human crossovers of coronavirus in the last 20 years. It's going to happen again. It's not necessarily going to be SARS-CoV-2. It might be SARS-CoV-3, but it will happen again. And what we need to do now is take advantage of the attention, of the financial. We're getting a lot of funding to do this, to build this network and sustain it forever, so that we don't fall back into a complacent position and wonder why we weren't prepared for the next pandemic, right? So I encourage everybody who has influence, and we will do what our part, is in science and government, to build this network and have it in place, not only for monitoring SARS-CoV-2, as it mutates and gives us new variants, but also, as was mentioned, we've put in funding requests to CDC to build this network for antimicrobial resistance, for RSV, other respiratory viruses, influenza, and as was mentioned, opioids and opioid metabolites. So we anticipate to hear from CDC soon about our funding request for next year. But also Governor Hochul put in her budget, which was passed, $15 million for wastewater surveillance for at least for the next 3 years. So 5 million over the in each of the next 3 years to apply to this technology and build it up. And that's exactly what we plan to do. And you'll see more dots on this map, and hopefully in the next year we'll have nearly 80% of New York's population sewered. So as we get to 225 treatment plants, we'll be able to have information about almost all of the communities of New York State. And it's mostly to keep people safe, and it's also to prepare our healthcare systems, to be ready for what might be coming in their door, right? Who may be coming seeking treatment, and then we can pre-position, pharmaceuticals and other treatment techniques to help those people and keep them alive. So with that, I think, one last thing I wanted to mention is that we are, as I kind of alluded to this, but one of the other projects that we're working on is we're going to go into all of the communities and map out sampling networks so that as technology improves and we may be able to get to less expensive testing methods, we may be able to test in more locations to get more granular information as to where viruses and other things are happening. So that's one of the projects that we'll be doing in the next year with our new public health corps fellows that we're hiring. All right, everybody can get in traffic now.